Welcome to the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Marshall, here to help you function at your best in health, fitness, and life. Hello. Along with my co-host, Haley Pindle, who's usually here, but she had too many other amazing things going on. Actually, something came up for her that she couldn't be here. So we missed you, Haley. You're amazing. We still love you. But I do have an exciting guest on who I'm so glad that she could take time to be here. Her name is Dr. Lauryn Brunclik. Did I
Nailed
say
it?
Right?
You nailed it.
And what we have in common, so as you guys already know, my background is in chiropractic. Her background is also in chiropractic. And I'm excited for her to share more of her story on that. And you know what? Even if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I'm not a chiropractor, but you're a working woman, working mom, and you got a lot going on in your life, we want to dive into the topic of developing clarity, both in our personal and professional lives. And there's no person better than I can think of to do that than Dr. Lauryn. She knows all about how business can be hard, whether on the healthcare front or in entrepreneurship. So, and again, even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're working a 9 to 5, it can be hard. So balancing all of that is a huge deal. Dr. Lauryn has a full podcast dedicated to helping women slay the day. It's called the She Slays the Day podcast. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see that on her side of the screen. Very exciting. So make sure you go and check out her podcast as well. She's definitely a no-nonsense woman, and she's a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much for being on today, Lauryn.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. And you have everything from clinical business strategies to private practice tips, personal growth. Like there's a lot of directions we could go with this conversation. But we're going to make it really clear what we're talking about, right? Because we were talking about clarity.
Emily, do you know that I am one of the running jokes is that I have ADHD and a clear, I am the epitome of making a short story long, but taking and feeling like every detail is absolutely necessary along the way. But me talking on clarity, I have a journey, but yeah, getting it out clearly will be hilarious.
That's great. Well, because I think really what it comes down to is I did go, and you guys check out Lauryn's content. I clicked on one of your videos on Instagram recently, and I downloaded one of your free pages that helps to develop brand clarity, because I kind of wanted to see more like what you're all about. And I've definitely had those struggles along my journey. Where you're all over the place, you're people pleasing, you're like, oh, I can solve everyone's problems, right? And that's a huge deal because it can get you spread really thin and burnt out. And I think especially as women, we can get trapped in overthinking. We can get trapped in just getting distracted and not feeling clear about what are our goals, what is our purpose, both when we're working or in our home life, right? Because you might be, like I said, whether you're working a 9 to 5 or you're doing like a work from home entrepreneurial, or you're just literally if you're a mom, you're on 24/7 working at home, right? So I want to hear some more about your background and your journey first, and then we'll dive into some strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that even though, when I look at my journey, because I'm 38, I've been in practice 15 years. I've got 2 kids, 10 and 13, married to my husband for 15 years. When I look at my journey, it's definitely not linear. It's but it all kind of works together. And at no point, even though I never dreamed when I was graduating chiropractic school that this is what I would be doing at 38. So even though I'm surprised and every day, I don't know what 5 years from now is going to look like, I was so clear at every different phase. So, I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor from the time I was 12. I just didn't question it. I remember coming home and telling my mom, and she was like, okay, cool. We'll see. You're 12. It's okay. And I was like, nope, that's what I'm doing. And so all through high school, all through undergrad, all through chiropractic school, so we're talking about a span of 12 years. It was like, what am I doing with my life? I'm going to get married. I'm going to be a chiropractor. I'm going to have kids. I'm going to get, like, I just, it was like even talking to, so because the timeline was I literally got married in September, graduated in October, started a practice in December, all like, and I think I was pregnant within 6 months. And I remember like around the time of my husband's and my wedding, my mother-in-law talking about like, what? You guys are starting a business. Don't have kids right away. And I was just like, nope. Like, I want kids. I want kids right away. And so it was just like very, very clear. And we started the business and it was great. And we had our first baby and that was great. And then we grew the business and then we had a second baby and all of it. Like, so like pretty much my entire 20s, because I graduated early. I graduated at 24. So pretty much my entire 20s was the efforts and outcome, or like, end result of 2 decades of planning and being super clear about what I wanted from my life. And I don't remember exactly how old I was. I know both kids were born. We'd been in practice probably around 5 to 7 years. And it was just like, okay, well, now what? And so that was really because we had kind of had the conversation that we only wanted 2 kids. And so like we knew another kid wasn't the thing. And we had opened a second practice and we had grown it and grown it and grown it. And it was like, as a business, you're always like, well, yeah, we want to grow it more. But like that wasn't a new exciting challenge. It was kind of like, well, we figured out how to grow a practice. So yeah, we're going to keep doing more of that. But like, now what? What on earth? And so there was, I guess I said the entire time I was clear, but like I was very clear that I didn't know what I was doing next. So like, I know that sounds weird, but like I was very clear that I no longer knew what the next step was and kind of figured it out pretty quickly. So then I
Okay,
started.
okay. Wait, you need to go further into that
Okay.
point. Because do you feel like that was like a surrender to I don't necessarily know? Because I feel like a lot of women want to latch onto the, well, I should say people. I think it happens for men and women want to latch onto almost like this sense of control,
Oh, like
right? That's
certainty. Yeah.
yes, certainty.
So so I am someone who makes decisions with 60% of the amount of information I need. And I trust that if it's the wrong decision, I will pivot or change course quickly. And I was just listening to a conversation on the School of Greatness with Brendon Burchard and Lewis Howes. Is that how we pronounce his
Yep.
name? Yeah. Um, and that's what they were talking about. Like that's like one of the number one trait in like a super successful person. So not even like a leader, just like someone who has acquired a massive amount of success is they don't feel like they need all of the certainty. And it's funny because I'm married to an analytical person. He has, a finance degree. Like he loves his spreadsheets. He loves having as much data as possible. And I just it's not something that I built. This is just something that's a part of me that's like I will take action without being certain. Like I am certain I will realize it's the wrong decision and make a change quickly. Like that's the only thing I am certain of. But like when it comes to making some of these big shifts, I wasn't necessarily looking for certainty. I was looking for something exciting. So that might be kind of like a different shift in the mind frame of like, now I look back and the hindsight is like, oh, I was bored. And that's what it was. I wasn't burnt out. I was bored. It was like, okay, so if I want a $2 million clinic, I just double like the efforts. Like that sounds boring. I don't want to do that. Like, and so I wasn't unsure. I wasn't scared. I knew that I could just keep doing this, but that sounded boring. So I was really led by more excitement of like, okay, this sounds exciting. So I started coaching other chiropractors. And that was exciting for a few years. And then it wasn't. And then remember when I told you I have ADHD? I honestly, when I look back so far, like I truly am a faith-filled person where I believe, like, I look back and it's like, wait, why'd you decide that? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, I really feel divinely guided that, like, because I don't overthink things, for me, it's God, spirit, universe, whatever we want to call it, like that is able to show up louder. And so for me, it's like, well, why did you decide to move to that town? I'm like, I don't really know. And it's like, I look back and I'm like, that was such a divinely led moment that my brain didn't overthink it. I just, like, again, some people be like, I just followed my gut. Great. Whatever you want to call it. My gut led louder than my brain. And
How did
so,
you communicate that between you and your husband
oh,
having
that's a great
different
question.
personality types? Because I'm really curious on like how did you guys get clarity even like in you meeting and then the fact that you've been together as long as you have getting on the same page with these decisions if you're feeling really clear was he also or was he not and then how did that
Right.
communication go?
So I have a confidence in leading people into an unknown that so for the first, I don't know, however many years, like, so when we met, um my husband's experience with chiropractic, like, he grew up with chiropractic, but it was like go 2 or 3 times a year. He's like, his parents were farmer,
Right.
he had had sports injuries, so he would go get adjusted like once. So he was like, oh, I love chiropractic, I've grown up going to a chiropractor. And I'm like, fantastic. So like, he, when we met, he was just like, cool, you're going to be a doctor, and like a really cool doctor that's principled in like health and like, and you want to raise children by family. So we shared a lot of the exact same like core values. So it was very easy to just go along with that. Now on some of the more like controversial things that we will not go into the weeds on as a chiropractic parent, because he's analytical. Um, so we have two girls. So I'll pick a less controversial example. I said, like, listen, if I have a boy, I don't want to circumcise. And he was like, what? And I was like, do your research, do honest research, come back to me and tell me if you disagree, and then we'll have the conversation.
Mm.
Because he's analytical, and, well, I mean, like, this is what he did in corporate America for a while, is like he like studied real research and like data and stuff like that. So he came back. Now we ended up having girls. We didn't need to make that decision, but we came back and he was like, no, you're right. Like, and like he knew more about it than I did. Other things in raising our children, he had the exact same journey. So it was one
I
of
like
those
that.
things.
Like
Yeah.
that you said that you're like, okay, here's my stance, do your research, come back to me, and then have the conversation. I think that's a really good communication tip for more analytical and less analytical
Yeah,
brains.
because research doesn't, like, I don't want to say research doesn't do much for me, but like I'm just not going to meet an analytical where they're at. So like I am all the main characteristics of a CEO except for patience. I don't have, well, maybe that's a CEO thing. Like I can paint a vision of where we're going and convince people, like, let's do it. That sounds great. Um and so that's kind of, I just CEO'd the heck out of my husband in painting a vision for our lives. And he is, because of his analytical, he doesn't need to be CEO. He just needs to trust that we share, like, because we share the same core values, she would never lead our family in a bad direction. And so there was a little bit of trust, but then like ultimately he's just a great COO of like, all right, yep, I believe in the vision. I'm going to figure out how to make this happen, da, 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 and all of that. So like he is the COO of multiple of our businesses. He's the CFO. I don't know how money makes it into our, like, how the money happens. I don't know.
You can't
Like
share that. Okay,
he
Lauren,
takes,
this is it. This is a great time for me to bring up one of your videos that came across my feed that I just thought was great. Was the one where I don't know if I'm going to say it exactly, so you can correct me. You're like standing there sipping coffee or something, and it's like, I'm an independent woman. I don't need nobody. And then all of a sudden it pops to like your husband, and it's like, hi, I'm nobody. I
Yes.
schedule Lauren's appointments. I blah, blah, blah. And it has like 50 things that he does that like just makes your life crack.
Yeah. It's legit. Like
I love
I
it.
am, and I'm really glad you brought that up because so my history as a millennial, like in my 20s in chiropractic school, like I would go to conferences, I would listen to podcasts, and it would be these like really powerful leaders, male or female, and like you were just like they're doing it all.
Yeah.
And I really try to, anytime I have an opportunity to speak, to be like, I am so not doing it all. Like, I have people in my life, and because, like I married someone that just worked out. We didn't know at 22 when we got engaged that this was going to be our lives. Like, it worked out fantastic. But like, if he didn't have certain skills, we would outsource. Like we
Yeah.
would outsource. I would not try and be doing it all. Like I don't clean my house. I don't meal prep. I don't cook dinner. Like I don't pay our bills. I mean, like there are just I don't take my kids to school. I'm not the one responsible for taking them to piano practice. I'm not the one responsible. Like I am not responsible for like anything except being like a loving mom and like trying to keep my shit together as like a good person in our family and thinking about being the CEO of our businesses. Now I am
Yeah.
also the face of the business too. So like,
Yeah.
there's that. But like that's how like he works for our businesses. He doesn't have his own 9 to 5. We're not fighting over whose responsibility is what. He knows like, yep, you have to do this and he takes everything else.
Yeah. No, that's a good distinction because I think where a lot of particularly working mothers can get trapped in this doing it all mentality. And I don't know if it's a blind ignorance or it's a willing ignorance to accept the fact that there's always going to be trade offs in life and that you have to pick what those trade offs are. And you have to decide that for yourself. You have to decide that as a couple. If you're, if you have a
Mhm.
spouse, you have to decide what's best for your family and what's going to flow in order to create a healthy environment for your family. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what you've described a bit, but you could touch more on some of those trade
Well,
offs.
and I have a theory. Um, so like I said, I'm 38. My mom, she's 62, I believe. And this is relevant information. Like her mom was a stay-at-home mom. Okay. So when we're looking at like generational stuff, if you have a mom who's in her 60s or even late 50s, probably, her mom was a stay-at-home mom, likely. Obviously there were some outliers back then, but when you're looking at, she was born in the 60s, those moms stayed home and raised kids and took care of the house. And
And
then
a
that
point on that, just to interject for a second, point on that, but if you go even further back, a lot of families were all working, but they were working like on their farm, on their ranch, on their smaller like
Mhm.
plot.
And grandma lived with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And they all worked together. And there was
Yes.
a lot less of like leaving to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyways, just interesting to
So
see.
like my theory is that because like we have like that generation, like the 80s, what happened, the 70s, 80s was this like, I'm gonna work too. Now, again, we're not gonna go down the rabbit hole that this was actually a whole damn conspiracy to like, anyway, but like, so women are like, no, I deserve to work too, equal rights. Okay. I think that generation was so focused on fighting for equality in the workforce that they didn't dare bitch about the like negative result. It was like, oh wow, okay. cool. I just fought, like everybody just fought for this right for us to be in the workplace. Yeah, I will clean the house from 9 to midnight. I'm not going to dare complain about it. So we, like millennials, saw our moms doing it all
Mm.
quietly and not like, now mentally they were struggling, obviously. And so then, like, we come in and we're like, this is just what we saw. We saw, but one generation tried it out. A single generation, pretty much, tried out. And maybe you come from two generations, but like, so there's a lot of my generation going, like, well, wait a minute. I never questioned two working parents. And it's like, yeah, that was an experiment that we did not have enough data on. One generation pretty much of women were like, no, both of us are going to work. And we didn't like sit and go like, okay, so how is this working? Does this make sense financially? Like
And
we didn't,
also, like, what are the rates of couples staying together? Like,
we
they're
know divorce rates were through the
they
like
are
through
through
the
the roof,
roof
right?
with that generation. And so, but like there was none of that. Like, let's just pause now for a moment as society and see if this makes sense to continue that. And so, like, I think that that's a lot of like, if you're hearing that, like, have you paused? Did your mom pause? Like, did you like go, does this actually work? Like I've heard couples that, uh, so Kelly Roach, she's a big entrepreneur podcast and speaker. When she was on my podcast, she talked about how basically her and her husband, they both were very career motivated in very less words than what she said, was like it was a race to see whose career could progress as much as possible before they started having kids. And then the loser, no, these are not her words, like the loser takes the support role. That's a joke. She did
That's so
not, definitely
funny.
did not say that. But it was like, because they knew both of us cannot do
Keep that
this
pace.
because of their morals and values. Now, if you get to that point where you're like, well, he's this and I'm this and neither one wants to, okay, then you have to realize that, like, who's raising your child? Like, are you paying for a nanny? Are you paying for daycare? Like, who's cleaning your house? Who's making your meals? Who is doing that? If you're both going to have that in order for you to stay sane, that's kind of a reality.
Well,
So,
and the crazy part, and this has come up on a couple of our episodes where we were discussing fertility and fertility rates. And people get like up in arms about this. They don't want you to tell them what to do about having babies or not having babies. And
mhm,
okay, fine. But it's interesting because then there's also the result of there's a lot of couples who are like, we don't want to have babies, or we don't even want to be a couple. Like the younger generation, there's a high percentage, right? It's kind of like, okay, what does that say too? Because if you are a parent, you know it is like it's such a joy. Like, yes, it's
mhm,
hard, but it's such a beautiful gift of life, right?
mhm,
And so it's one of those things to look at too and go, yeah, it's pausing and asking the questions. I love how you said that, and go like, well, what will work and what won't work? And you know, don't suppress if you do want to be a parent, or let's say you are like you're listening to this, your mom, and you already have one kid and you want to have more than one kid, and it's like all it is assessing like where are we at, where are we hoping to go, developing clarity on that, and realizing that it's okay. Like, I love what you said, Lauren, about having that intuition and having like dreams in your heart that you're like, no, we don't know all the answers, we're not fully certain, but we're going to go for this, and it's okay if we
mhm.
make a course correct.
Yeah.
Because I think what is happening in our younger generation right now is they're just like, no, I should just suppress all of these feelings of wanting a family because it sounds so hard and crazy, and whatever they've lived through, traumas and things like that. And I'm like, that makes me sad. You
Yeah,
know what I
they've
mean?
seen like, and I think you hit on, I can't speak to it. I'm not a therapist by any means, but like I do think a lot of it comes from like that seems hard. And it's like
Yes.
it is, but like so is being 60 and wishing that you would have had kids.
Yeah.
Like, and
It's the
feeling
trade-off
like
again.
Yeah, like so is regret. So is not having someone to take care of you as you age. So is spending Christmas alone, like, or
Yeah.
can be, like, so it's just like there's a lot of hard things. And like, honestly, it's like, so is your dog. And
Yeah.
like, you love your dog. And it's like, but kids, it's like a million times more. So.
Yeah, yeah. It's so true. No, but I love with what you shared. Now I want to dig in a little bit more to your psychology because obviously we have like within all of us as human beings, we're unique. We have our own personalities, we have our own experiences. But I think there is a common thread for many people where they get trapped in this overthinking game. Like maybe it
Mhm.
comes from, yeah, wanting that certainty or wanting to be right or not wanting to fail or make mistakes, which we know you have to do if you want to grow and succeed. How do you how have you developed this skill more of not getting trapped in the overthinking and kind of forging forward, developing clarity as you go?
So I move very fast. Um, and I have people in my life that I can delegate to. So a lot of times I will just get the first step done. So like, a lot of big things require months. I mean, you know this. Months, or like weeks, months, multiple people, multiple emails, multiple different like steps to happen. And so a lot of times I will just shoot off the email before I can think about it too much. I will buy the thing. I will announce it to my people. That's a big one for me. Is like, because I have a podcast and an Instagram audience. If I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about starting a membership. Well, now I just like, it's like in my brain, I'll be
You
like, why
just
did
said
you
it.
do that? Now you have to do a membership, you idiot. Like, oh no. But it's like, but I'm excited. I'm excited about the idea of a membership. And I talked about it to people who are going to hold me accountable. And then I like bought a course on memberships. And I'm like, shit, I just spent $5,500 on a course for the membership. And that like helped because, they're like, you're going to want to delay. You're going to want to delay. You're going to want to delay. You're not going to do it. You're going to do this. Here's what you're going to do. Here's your timeline. Within 14 days, you're going to do this. And I'm just like, okay, I guess I will, like, type of thing. Cause I paid for this thing and I'm not like, I'm a cheap person. Like, I'm not going to like waste that. And so I just, do it afraid. I take as much action as I can while I'm feeling bold. And like, yeah, I know that's like really not super tactical advice, but it kind of is. You
Yeah.
just have to do it when you're afraid, like do it anyway. The confidence really doesn't come. So it wasn't until later, like more in the last 2 or 3 years, that the fear of failure. So, like, one, I'm a very public, like, well, are you familiar with the Enneagram?
I am. I haven't done it. I've done. Are
Okay.
you familiar with DISC or like
Yeah, but I don't
your
remember what I
personalities?
am. So, like,
Yeah, there's
I'm an
different
Enneagram
courses.
3. Like, I really need a lot of validation from people. Like, I'm very vain. I need like public praise. I'm like your typical first child type thing. Um, And so, like, when I am looking at, oh God, I got distracted. I'm like, why was I talking about needing public praise? Um, so when we're looking at like starting something, it's going like, okay, are people going to like this? And then as soon as I got good feedback, I was like, yay, this was that praise. But then inevitably throughout my past, I had to pivot. Right. So I wasn't confident. I was just like, oh, just moving impulsively and taking quick action. In the last couple of years is where I've now realized this fear of failure in most people is actually a fear of public failure.
Mm,
So it's not that they're afraid for themselves in failing, they're afraid of failing in front of people.
hmm
So So as an Enneagram 3, that was like a big thing for me of like, if I'm going to fail, I just want it to be private. I don't want anybody to know. And this is what a lot of people are, is they're not afraid to like just fail in front of themselves. They're afraid of other people seeing them fail.
Right.
And so it's really just been in the last couple of years that I go like, okay, I trust from over a decade, like 15 years of looking at my own behavior, I now in my late 30s can trust that nothing will be a true failure. Like truly there is something to learn that will positively affect the next attempt that could be worth its weight in gold, like literal gold, money. We're talking money. So I don't know if it was Alex or Mosey, but like somebody smart was saying like if you knew you were going to succeed on your 26th attempt, how fast would you rush through attempts number 1 through 25? Like if you knew number 1's not going to be successful, neither is number 2. It's not going to be until the 26th. Like people would fail 25 times in the next 6 months to try and get to that 26th.
Yeah.
Yet we've got people taking years thinking that if they just figure out every detail first, that first attempt will be perfect. And it will not be. It
No.
absolutely will not be. Like, not going to nail it. You're going to learn from it, and your like second attempt, and it may not be a failure. It may be a pivot, but it's just like you got people just wasting so much time wanting it to be perfect. And when every single successful person in their life, and no matter what their version of success, so like whether you're looking at success as a billionaire, success as a woman who has 6 children, like whatever your version of success is, she's like, the woman who has 6 kids and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just so afraid. Like she's going to talk to you about miscarriages. She's going to talk to you about times where she was holding her child in the hospital, scared for their life. Like she's going to tell you about fights with her husband. She's going to tell you about times she was bawling her eyes out in the shower, like with the door locked to the bathroom. She's going to tell you that when all you're looking at is her version of success, she's going to tell you, she's going to like bitch slap you and be like, no, this was not all rainbows. Like to get to this, one, my day to day is not like rainbows and butterflies. Like she's going to tell you about the boogers and the this and the that and the messes and the fights. She's also going to tell you about how much work and tears it was to get there. You will not find a single millionaire, especially a billionaire, who just goes, gosh, I've never failed. I don't know. It's just like, I just like, it just worked out. Nobody's going to say that. Not a single one. And this is why it's so funny because like whoever your version of success is, you're like worried about being judged a lot of times. Like you're worried about being judged. So like you've kind of got 2 categories of judgment. You've got the people who are also freaked out and not doing anything, not taking action. And then you've got the people you're comparing yourself to that are taking massive action. They're not going to judge you. The people who are not taking action absolutely will.
Yeah.
Ew. Do you see what she's doing? Why is she doing that? Like, why would she have another child? Why would they go to there? Like, whatever. Like, okay. Like,
Yeah.
but the people who are actually have built what you're trying to build, they're not the ones judging you. They're going to be like, yeah, that sucked when that happened to me too. Like, well, honestly,
Yeah.
they're so busy building their own thing. They're not even watching you, but
That is
like,
true. Yeah.
it's
100%.
just, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating because when I think through even just the process of building my business Frexy with the jackets, and it's like what you said, I was doing a bit of self-reflection. And for me, it was a lot about a fear of waste of this is my utilitarian side, a fear of wasting time, money, or energy. So essentially, like, is this a waste of resources? Looking
Mm.
at it through the lens of like, I'm looking at our family. I want what's best for our family, for our 4 kids, for my husband, for our businesses. And if I kind of, this is kind of my baby and I'm betting on myself, well, I better not waste our resources. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so that was in my head like a lot of the way through. And something that happened that like that really was a good thing throughout the process of Frexy is over the course of a year and a half, I'm now at a point where I'm like, this business is not making money. Like it's not thriving, right? And I realize that when you build businesses, it can take 3 to 5 years to even get somewhere in certain industries as far as like, is your business making money? But kind of like what you said is like, here I am, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely in the hole with this business. But guess what? I'm still alive. Our kids are still, my husband's providing for our family in his way and through our clinic, and we're like banding together and we're like selling what we can and we're learning what we can and we're taking courses and we're working, and I'm like, it's been this amazing example of like shifting, pivoting, and like enjoying it still. So kind of on the other side of like, your fear can come true, or like what you said, like you failed in quotations,
Mhm.
but you really didn't, because you're like, oh wow, I learned so much about myself and what our family needs in different seasons through this process. And it's like, hey, we're still rolling on the other side and it's not over yet. This is like what you said, this is just like another attempt in the journey. And what I find really interesting is if you tell someone, if people ask me like, how's Frexy going, I'm a really open, honest person too, right? And I'm like, honestly, not great right now. Usually the response to someone who hasn't built something is like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so hard. Like they feel bad for him. Like, dude, no, no, don't feel bad for me. I'm like, I needed to learn this lesson. It's almost hard to convey to them the feelings that you have from an entrepreneurial side, that you're like, this is part of the process. Like it
Right.
has to
And
be.
then if you're at dinner, like with somebody like me, I'm like, okay, so what are you currently doing for marketing? And it's just like, okay, have you thought about this? Have you tried this? Have you pitched it this way? Like, like, and it's just like, it's immediately like, well, it's not fail. Like, I hate the phrase failure is not an option. Like, what? That's
Yeah.
the I just view failure as the day you give up.
Yeah.
So if you give up, and I mean like give up,
Yeah,
like,
give up everything, not that idea. Let me just clarify. Like, I think
yeah,
this is what you're
no,
getting at. Because
no.
when you're developing clarity, for me, even going through, and I'm kind of pulling back a bit from that business in this season,
Mhm.
because I realized about myself, there's so many things, there's a lot of things I enjoyed about the creative process. There's a lot of things I'm really not enjoying. And I'm like, I don't actually know if I want to grow this one.
Right, right.
Kind of like what you said when you're like, this is kind of boring, or not necessarily boring for me. I'm like, I just don't know that I want to do it on the scale that I thought, because I
Mhm.
feel like what lights my fire is a slightly different skill set, which would be better suited to. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think giving up, when I picture giving up, it's like there's a wallowing, right? Like
Yes.
there's there's this negative narrative you have about your head. It didn't work. And I
Yeah.
am a failure. It is a failure. There's no point. Like you're just a very pessimistic thing where it's like I hear and I go like, "Oh my gosh, because how many kids do you have, Emily?"
4.
Right? So like if you told a parent, I feel like only I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody. I feel like any parent will definitely hear this and go like, "Oh, 100 times." All right, so Emily, if you could spend $200,000 to learn a lesson that will save your future child $20,000, even like make it substantially less, will save your child a year of heartbreak, will save your child like emotional fatigue, financial fatigue. Maybe it saves her marriage. Like, like how often would you do that? Like, and so it's
Oh,
one of
we
those
do
things
it
where,
all day,
right?
every
Like,
day.
it's like, oh my God, I choose. So it's like the lessons, like when you talk about the lessons that you're learning and stuff, those continue to go on for years and years. And like, the day that your kid, who you haven't heard from in 3 weeks because they're married and they're busy and they're da 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 da, and they live a
Yeah.
couple hours away, but they call and they're like, Mom, I need to talk to you. I need to get your advice. I have an idea on a business. What do you think? Like, to be able to have lived a life that you can contribute to your child. Because you're right. You just said when you talk to someone who doesn't have experience in this, they're like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, dude, like,
Yeah.
if that's all you'll be able to give to your friends and kids too. It's like, they're not calling you, by the way, because they're like, why would I call my mom? She doesn't know anything about business, or if it's not business, if it's a divorce, like, let's say it's like, like, you
Life
learn those lessons or you
experience.
saved a marriage, like, call, like, hey, I know you and dad went through a really hard time. How did you guys, how did you get out of that? Like, what did you do? Like, to live a life where you don't get to live a failure proof life and come out on the other end with good advice. The only way you get to live a failure proof life is by not actually going through anything. And then you just don't have anything to contribute. You like,
Oh,
you just
it's
don't.
it's so true. That like brought me chills. It's 100%. You nailed it. Should we end on that?
Right. Just
What else
mess
you
up a
got?
bunch
What
of
other
times.
mic drops you got?
Yeah. That's it. That's all we got. That's, unless you want another like 45, we can go on a whole nother tangent on other stuff.
No, this was amazing. I think the last thing I wanted to tie it into before we peace out for the day is think about, or Lauren, you tell me, if we think about what you just said, an impact on health, impact on the health for you as a woman, and impact on your family. Like
Sure.
when you look at, like, once you've developed this clarity in the sense of, I'm going to forge forward, I'm going to make mistakes, I'm going to do it scared, I'm going to fail and see that I can get back up and do the next step, like, what does that do to your brain? Like, what does that do to your physical and mental and emotional health?
Well, I mean, it really removes a lot of the fight or flight hormones from your system. When like, I'm going to do it scared. But you know what? A lot of the hormones that are released in our body with fear are also the hormones that are released with excitement. Like, it just, when you remove as much fear as you can, as much as you can, as much overthinking as you can, it actually creates room for joy and for fun to come in. So you can have fun while you're building a business that you're like, this might fail. Like, this might not work. This might not. But like, life can be fun. And then your kids can see, like, it's just that ripple effect of like, oh, they had fun. They had, like, my parents were always, working, but like, they had a really good marriage and they were doing stuff together. Like, just being that example for not just yourself, but your kids.
Ah, I love that. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Dr. Lauren. Make sure you guys go find Dr. Lauren on all the platforms. Go like and subscribe to She Slays the Day podcast. Make sure, if you haven't liked and subscribed to the Fresh and Fired Up podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, that you do that now. And please share this episode with a friend that it can help, because we know it's going to help so many women, and we need you guys to be able to do that. So have an awesome day. Make sure you be free, feel fresh, and live on